Boy, you paint a picture, and it is heartbreaking. You can't outrun it. You can't escape it. We're angry. We have a right to be angry. I often, say we can't let our foot off the gas. We cannot go back to sleep this time. But I wonder, when you talk about statistics of 80% of these no-knock warrants are Black and brown people, the white experience in America is so vastly different. I don't even know if we can blame white people because their experience is so much richer, but we have to hold them accountable. How do we do it? If they honestly do not understand the life that we live every day, that includes you in your nice suit and with your degrees, me, my family, none of us can escape that. It's different than, the class issue. How do we hold white people accountable? Because it seems to me that we can fight the good fight and we intend to not let our foot off the gas. But how do we get good white people to stop being defensive, stop preaching to us, shut up, listen, and join us?
It's a real easy answer for me, even though it's a profound question. And I want to say it in three parts. Number one, the only people that can stop white supremacy is white people. Black people are not out here championing that white people are better than us, that we're inferior to them. That is a conscious or subconscious thought in white people's minds. And they have to do that. I go in courtrooms all across America. When we pick these juries, I literally ask them, do you all believe in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence? I know you can quote it, but I want to know if you believe it. Do you believe that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness? Do you believe that? Because if you don't believe that, then this dead Black person can't ever get justice when it comes to this white police officer, because you all are not seeing them as equals. And until you see them as equals, then the system cannot work. That's number one. And so white people have to come to the solution of ending white supremacy. Number two, I think Martin Luther King said it best. You cannot call yourself a good person. You cannot say that you are a moral person when you see evil and you turn your head. Neutrality in the presence of evil and injustice is injustice. If you don't do anything about it, you have picked your side. And so, the old saying, the only thing for evil to exist is for good men to do nothing. And people who say they're good, they have to do something about it. You can't, I don't care what it is, you ain't got to jump on the front lines with Reverend Allen, me, and the Black Lives Matter, but you got to do something. Whether it's write a letter, go to your mayor, do something to say, if you're a corporate partner, do something to say, hey, we want to stop this injustice. We're not going to just look away and say it don't exist, like we didn't see what happened. We didn't see George Floyd begging for the breath for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. No, we got to do something. And then the third thing and final thing I was saying, this could go on forever. But the third thing, I had an opportunity to give a fireside chat with the CEO of Truist Bank. And it was pretty profound. They had like 1,000 of their bank partners there watching us on Zoom, this old white man. And in introducing me on Juneteenth, he said this, Sharon, and I give him a lot of credit because I think this is what it's going to take to solve these issues of social justice. He said after George Floyd happened and you had all these cities burning in America and people marching and everything, he said one of his neighbors came over to him and they knocked on the door and he said, man, Kelly, because his name was Kelly, he said, we got to do something, man. It's getting bad out there in these streets. I mean, things are going from bad to worse. We got to call somebody. And Kelly said, he said, somebody got to do something. Kelly said, I thought about it for a minute and I said, well, I didn't know the somebody's name. I didn't know the somebody's phone number. And I didn't know the somebody's address. And then I looked back at my friend and I said, we the somebody that got to do something. And that's all of us. We all have a responsibility in the struggle for the equality of our children. We got to take it personal. We got to do something about it. We cannot look to other people to solve this problem. Everybody has a personal stake, even our white brothers and sisters, Sharon.
Mm-hmm. You travel the country a lot, and I wonder, I get my own stuff directed at me on social media. I don't care. I got it when I sat at the news desk. It is what it is, and it's expected. How much has it increased for you?
Well, I would say this. You ask that question and my heart immediately gets heavy. I had my Hollywood debut, Sharon, in the movie Marshall with the late, great Chadwick Boseman, who was playing Thurgood Marshall, who is my personal hero. And I remember the 2 days that we were on the set, I was in the last scene with Trayvon's parents, if you all remember the movie. And Chad was asking me all these questions because he wanted to get it right. And actors, the method actors, they get into character. They want to know, what is it really like to be a lawyer? And he was like, man, he paid me a high compliment. He said, you are Thurgood Marshall. And what is it like when you go to these new cities and you take on new cases and so forth? And, I was like, normally the black people be happy and the white people be mad. They say, I'm a race baiter, outside agitator. He go this Crump. And they disregard, Shannon, the fact that a white police officer or a white person killed a black human being. That's not the issue. They say, you the problem, Crump. You bringing all this racism to our city. And so I said, that's part of it. And then he said, well, do you get the death threats and so forth, like Justice Marshall? And I said, yeah, Chad, I do, but understand, Thurgood Marshall had it way worse. I mean, back then they was truly lynching black people without any consequence whatsoever. They had lynch mobs. Thurgood had to change houses almost every night because he knew they was trying to get him, and everybody knew it. And so he had it better. But yeah, I get the death threats. And when I get the death threats, I report them to the FBI. And he said, and then what you do, Crump? I said, and then I show up to court the next day because we cannot let them see that they are intimidating us. And we have to send the message loud and clear that there are some things worth dying for. And we believe the future of our children are that important that we will die for this cause. And I don't take it for granted every day because I know how real some of these threats are. And I was reminded of that, Sharon, in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I've been everywhere. Kenosha scares me because I saw they had all these young white people walking around with assault weapons because they are open carry state, and the police was doing nothing. And when that young white boy walked and killed those people, and the police gave him a high five and water, it really was scary in America. But we still have to let them know that we will not be deterred, that our children matter that much to us, that we're willing to die for their future because people were willing to die for our future. So many unsung heroes died for us to be able to be on TV, Sharon, to be able to go in that courtroom for Brian Monroe to be able to go in those corporate suites. All these great Black professionals to be able to have a seat at the table. They were willing to die for us. We have to be willing to die for something too.
They're a percentage, you know. There's marching in the streets. There's fighting it in the courts. There's the financial pressure, the boycotts, all of it. How much, there's so much to unpack, you know, the legacy, the Confederacy, the schools, the justice system, police reform. Where do we start, and how much pressure can we apply? The biggest bang for the buck.
You know, I think all of them are important, but I will submit to you right now, Shannon, the biggest thing we got to do is figure out how to motivate our people to go vote in an election that they don't want us to vote in, and that they're going to try to disenfranchise us. You know, regardless of what you think about politics, politics still is the art of being able to move agendas forward in a society. And whoever is going to be the president and the vice president, and then on down to the governor and the senators and representatives, on down to the DAs and the mayors, especially on the local level with the mayor and the DA and the school board superintendent, that directly impacts your life. I mean, don't you want a district attorney, if your child makes a youthful mistake, that he won't be branded or she won't be branded for the rest of their life? Well, if that's what you want, you got to get out and go vote. I mean, it's crazy when people say, well, your vote don't matter. That's what they want you to believe. And so you got to tell everybody in your family, everybody at your church, everybody at your job, let's go vote. Let's don't do no mail-in ballot, because I think this current administration with this guy and his attorney general, you know, that Reverend Al and everybody joke and say, I'm Black America's attorney general, because we don't have an attorney general that's speaking for us. Sharon, I don't think this attorney general is speaking for a lot of people, not just Black people. When you hear the craziness that he's saying, he's almost like a puppet for President Trump. And so we cannot count on these mail-in ballots. We got to make sure we show up and cast our vote, early voting, or get in that voting poll, because I think they are not going to count a lot of those mail-in ballots, and it can't be close. This election can't be close, because if it's close, that guy is not going to leave the White House peacefully. And that person, Sharon, has appointed more federal judges in 4 years than Barack Obama appointed in 8 years. And these are lifetime appointments of people who I don't believe in the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. They do not believe that we are equal to them.
And remember what Mitch McConnell did, you know, when President Barack Obama put up candidates, held them up. They didn't even get a fair hearing. And so I wonder how we can educate people, because, you know, I'm so passionate about the media, and I think Hollywood, you know, these great filmmakers, you have the Will Packers of the world, and all of these people out there, Ava DuVernay, all of these people who tell our stories. How does media affect and can affect change in energizing people, getting out the vote, but also unpacking the lies, Black on Black crime, as if that's a thing instead of, you know, this racist lie? How can media and the storytelling really affect change?
You know, Sharon, Malcolm X said that TV was one of the most powerful drugs ever created. He said that, man, TV gets into your subconscious mind and have you thinking things that you don't even realize that you're thinking. I mean, you see all these negative images over and over again of Black people and brown people. We're criminals, we're thugs, we are wife beaters, we are burglars. You know, all these images they keep projecting on the evening news. They keep projecting in the newspapers. They project on in Hollywood, all these negative images. So when white people come in a courtroom, and they are sitting in judgment of Trayvon Martin, and they say, well, it's easier to believe that this little black child was up to no good, and they don't believe, no, he was just walking home, talking on the phone to his friend, and minding his business, because their subconscious mind has told them that black is criminal. That's what the media is projecting. That's what Hollywood is projecting. That's what newspapers are projecting. So what we have, and they say it's easier to believe negative stuff than positive stuff. I don't know why that is, but all the psychologists say that. And so if you have all that projected stuff on there, it's easy for them to kill George Floyd a second time, or to assassinate the character Breonna after they execute her in her own apartment. I had to go defend right before Breonna Taylor, Sharon. They tried to say, despite what we saw in that video, that George Floyd died from an overdose of drugs, even though he only had trace amounts of drugs in his system. And I had to declare to the world that the only overdose that killed George Floyd was an overdose of excessive force and racism by the Minneapolis Police Department. But that's what we have to do, because the media is so powerful, and they will play up a negative thing about a black person, and they won't do that to white people. Kyle Rittenhouse, the boy who actually murdered people, you don't hear them talking bad about him. But George Floyd and Breonna, who didn't kill nobody, man, you would think they were anything but a child of God.
The best, Dr. Bodden. You had to get your own autopsy. When we watched, that press conference, the initial charges, and saw what was going on here, we all saw it, as you said, with our own eyes, all 8 minutes of it, including the horrors, the screams. And yet you had to start not from the ground up, but feet under, to unpack it all. When you think about where we go from here with the election, less than 6 weeks out, and the Attorney General, as you said, I think he believes it. Yes, he seems to be the president's best mouthpiece, but he actually believes it. Early on, there's talk that, most Republicans vote in person, and Democrats will vote early or by mail. And he will, as you said, jump out early and say, listen, I won, that's it. And now you have a crisis on your hands. What can we do in these last 6 weeks to really make sure that we get the kind of change that we all deserve?
Well, I think we got to make sure we encourage everybody, especially young people. I think the older people, Shannon, they gonna vote. People like my mama, and I don't know if your parents are still with us, but I mean, my mama, she gonna do whatever it takes to go vote, because they understand this hard-fought victory, and they're not just gonna let somebody take it for granted. But it's the young people who we got to get out here and vote and so forth. But I will say this, Shannon, I would say this from my heart, that despite what happens, we're going to be okay. I say that from my heart. In first year law school, they teach us about precedents. And they teach us, they're indoctrinated in our mind. Everything is based on precedents. You got to look at the precedents of the previous rulings and cases to make sure that we have consistency in the law in the future. Now, I didn't accept that, Sharon, because, if we accept the precedents, you and I would still be slaves, because the United States Supreme Court said in Dred Scott decision there were no rights that a black man had that a white man was bound to respect. And that was the precedents. But I do understand what they were trying to teach us, and that is that precedents is a good indicator of what is likely to happen in the future. And when I think of the precedents of black people in America, I think about how we overcame slavery. I think about how we overcame the Middle Passage. I think about how we overcame being defined as 3/5 of a human being. I think about how we overcame the Dred Scott decision, how we overcame Reconstruction, how we overcame Plessy v. Ferguson, how we overcame separate but equal, how we overcame Jim Crow, and now how we overcoming Jim Crow Jr. And what that tells me, Sharon Reed, is no matter what they throw at us as a people, based on the precedents of our grandparents and our great-grandparents and those slaves who prayed for us in the fields, no matter what they throw at us, Black people, based on precedents, we gonna overcome
it. I really do. Final words, final updates about all the families affected here, because we take it so personally. We see ourselves in the grief. Too many victims. Attorney Crump, what can we do to help them? Because at the end of the day, I guess it is a blessing when, if Breonna Taylor has to leave us, at least we say her name. But there's a real family there. George Floyd has a daughter and people who love and knew him. And I wonder what we can do to support these families.
Well, Sharon Reed, we all have a role to play in this struggle. You have to keep using your voice, your magnificent talent to speak truth to power every chance you get a platform. Like Chadwick Boseman told me in that dressing room after we kept talking about the real life tribulations of being a civil rights lawyer. And he said, well, Crump, you keep, and this is so heavy on my heart. He said, you keep fighting in the courtroom. I'm going to go and try to put positive images on the screen of Hollywood and fight to uplift our culture there, because we all have a role to play. And, you know, we have to just fight to make a more just society, more just America, where George Floyd has an opportunity to take a breath, where Breonna Taylor has the opportunity to sleep in peace, where Ahmaud Arbery has an opportunity to run free. You know, we have to fight, Sharon, for all our children. They have an equal opportunity at the American dream, for them to have that chance at life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness. Especially our little Black boys, who they are targeting, boy. I mean, they're coming after us. And so I would say in conclusion that, and I quote Dr. King partly, and I embellish some. Dr. King said, the coward asked the question, is it safe? He said, expediency asked the question, is it politically correct? He said, oh, vanity comes along and asks the question, is it popular? But then Dr. King said, conscience comes along and asks the question, is it right? And Dr. King concluded, there comes a time when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct, or Sharon, not even safe. But Dr. King said there comes a time when one must take a position because their conscience tells them it's the right thing to do. And I submit to you, brothers and sisters, it is the right thing to do to stand up for our children. It is the right thing to do to speak up for our children. It is the right thing to do to fight for our children. Because if we don't do it, we can't expect nobody else to fight for them. And so it is within us to save our children and make it a better world for them.
I just appreciate you so much. I love the Black space. I love being a Black woman. And I hear you. You got to risk something. You got to be prepared to be uncomfortable, to lose something in order to gain for all of us. Attorney Crump, you keep fighting for us, and we'll keep standing in line behind you and boosting you up. We appreciate you so much. You are Black excellence. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Sharon Reed. I love what you do, and I love you.
I love you too. You stay safe too. Appreciate you. I think we have more music now. We'll lighten the load a little bit and enjoy ourselves.